this way. Hi, this is David Williams here. I'm with Martin Brossman. Martin, how are you doing this afternoon?
Excited to be with you today.
I flubbed up on your name. I did that. Did that earlier, and I was told the guys like I'm not even drinking yet. So, but I've known you for years, Martin. I know you have a passion for small business. At the end of this, I'll give you an opportunity to give us a big spiel of your website and a lot of that type of stuff. But start off briefly by just telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into a conversation.
Absolutely. I'm Martin Brossman, and I'm a success coach, speaker, and author. I work basically with people for amplifying their message, their brand, their presence, and their success on the ground and on the web. That's the bottom line. That integration of both and also making them unstoppable in life is really kind of the brand where whatever happens, good or not good, we are still moving forward. And that's kind of the focus and what I focused on pretty much since I left IBM in 95.
Wow. So 25 years at it. I know one of the things that you said in there was good and bad and moving forward. So what I heard you say is moving forward when things are good and bad. So let's talk about that for a moment, about moving forward when things are good and moving forward when things are not so good, because there's always going to be adversity. I like what you said about unstoppable. So talk me through, and those that are listening, through kind of a process and what you see and what you experience, because you've got 25 years of doing this. So talk about moving forward and making things happen when you're off the hook, so busy you can't think straight, and then when things are like in a slump and you're like, what am I going to do next? So go for it. I'm giving you the
floor.
Well,
there are two continuums in human beings. There's the continuum of I'm comfortable and things are going well, and that to me has a risk of being a rut. And I like the definition of as a rut is a casket with the ends kicked out. So there's a risk there. And then there's the continuum of a complete breakdown where you're paralyzed and not able to move like a stunned deer. And that's equally a problem. And my interest and passion is, how do we get ourselves so we're leaning into life and we have a sense of urgency with life? Because what I experience, and I have some stories to share about this, is I think for most of us, life is most fulfilling when it's more like a roller coaster we're enjoying than a beautiful boat with lily pads we're relaxing in. And I want to share a story from years ago. When I went to Japan, I was very interested in Zen and meditation. Actually, I studied all the known religions. And when I was in Japan, of course, what are you going to learn about is their culture. And we got a tour of the Zen monasteries. And I said, why are there stacks and stacks of barrels of sake at the monasteries? I mean, imagine going, in a American church and there's stacks of barrels of beer waiting to be opened. Okay. You would ask a question, wouldn't you?
Right.
And I said to the woman, why are those? And the woman, wonderful guide with a little flag in hand, leading us around, a Japanese woman, real articulate, said, that is for our semi-annual or twice a year celebrations. And then she explained it. And then I came back to her and I said, so what you're saying is the monks meditate about 6 months up here in the mountains, eating very simple food and living very simple lives. And then you have a rip-roaring party with barrels of sake, including the entire town, where you run through with giant torches, almost burn the place down, get completely plastered, and then come back and do it, meditate for another 6 months. And and she said, yes, basically, in English. And it was such an eye-opening, because I had this idea that life was all about this perfect balance. Well, life doesn't come at us in perfect balance. In fact, I just want to share with you, under crushing stress with my taking care of my parents, you may not remember it, but you said, you know, Martin, I think you need to go to a gun range and relax. And then first moment, being raised in Washington, D.C., where I say we often arm criminals and make them feel safe there, I thought that doesn't sound right, but it does sound fun. And I trust you because you grew up in the South, and we went to it. And during that hour, I had the first break of stress from my parents I had had. Now, I have formally trained in meditation. I have all types of other practices, but it gave me a freedom because all I had was target and safety. And I knew enough when we went there, those were two things. In fact, we even talked a little bit about it. And you said, I'll show you, follow me on what I do and everything else, which has actually led to a hobby related to it since then. The key of it is life is more like a roller coaster. And the truth is, those that enjoy the roller coaster are seeing it as an adventure. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't times when it's really scary. But if we can then reframe from that fear and start yelling in joy or excitement, then things can start picking up. And I actually want to give a quote from Linda Craft and team, Linda, years ago. And I've known her many years, and I got to do some training recently with her team. Years ago, when 2008 occurred, the market collapsed. Remember that?
Yep. Oh, I lost your audio.
Back in 2008, when the market collapsed, I asked Linda, I said, what are you going to do? And Linda said the same thing I did in 2001. And she lists like 4 or 5, it looked like the world was ending events in her career that had occurred. And I said, well, what's that? She goes, I'm going to ask the question, how do we succeed now? And how do we make money now? And I thought that was such an important piece, because the risk of a disaster occurring can be just as dangerous as the risk of us being so comfortable we become complacent. And I think that's a tragedy of life as much. So we have to watch both of them, not just what do we do in these times, but when we get comfortable enough where we're complacent, what do we do to keep ourselves at an edge that keeps life invigorating and exciting? One more thing. Go ahead.
Now, I love the roller coaster analogy, because it's causing me to visualize, right? And you think about going down, and it's really frightening, but then you're going down to a bottom to come back up, right? So right. That's what I'm seeing when you're saying that.
I gave a talk at my university. I've been honored. They have me come into the senior business class, and they want something about entrepreneurship and everything. And I gave out a bunch of my quotes and said, which one grabbed you the most? Well, 2/3 of the class said one of my quotes grabbed their attention the most. And the quote was, if your life is boring, it's because you are boring. Life begins outside your comfort zone. So it's very important we always keep something active in our life that pushes us outside our comfort zone. Like when I first started to learn how to shoot, right. From you, that was outside my comfort zone. I was even afraid of letting anyone know, because in DC,
I remember
you're a gun person. God forbid, one of those evil people,
Yep, I remember that.
And then I told you I was in one of the classes in a small town. I decided to share it. It was all women. They were all a little older than me. And they all were going, well, what type of gun do you shoot? Well, do you have an Apex trigger in it? What are you doing for performance? I'm going, they know more about the gun I was shooting competition than I do. But anyway, this piece of it is what do you do to keep yourself on edge? What do you do to push yourself outside your comfort zone? Now, that's one I've taken up since I'm at the house more. I picked up learning music is another one. I'm out. I just pass my most advanced amateur radio license extra. So I'm starting to see if I can learn Morse code. And the evidence is I can't. You see, pick up something that you'd love to do that you actually think you can't do, and then prove yourself wrong by taking it on, and give it a time period. It's okay to fail. Another aspect of this that I do want to say, tragically, a lot of the younger people from our whose parents are our age and up didn't give them enough opportunities to fail to have any confidence, and that's really sad. You know, because failure and getting up again, that ritual is the doorway to real confidence. And if you win all the time, you won't trust anything. You won't know where your boundaries are, where your wins are, where your gift to the world is. And so that was another aspect of it as well.
Yeah, there's I've known you for many years now, and I think since 2004, so 16 years. And in that time, I know the challenges you went through with both your parents, your mom and dad, who have now since passed on. Matter of fact, in 2004, the first time I ever met you at a networking meeting, I met your father as well. So, he was still in good health. He was down from DC. So I know you've faced those challenges. I know that you've had other challenges. And so I've seen you continue on and to press through it. So I say that because, it's not like everything has always been like super cool for you. Like, oh, Martin's had an easy road and there's been no challenges and there's been nothing that you've had to face. And you've also shared that with me before, because I've got, adult daughters that are married, 26 and 28. One's actually about to be 29 this month. That's coming up. As a matter of fact, I think it's 2 weeks from Saturday. She'll be 29. I say that because I've seen how they've developed, and somehow or another, my wife and I got it right with them. They're both in good careers, and they both seem to have a good head on their shoulders. Try to keep my son-in-law straight, so, but I didn't just give, hand stuff to them. And I was able to allow them to experience some adversity, but I do believe that they are better young women now because they didn't just have everything handed to them. It was like, here it is. And that's a good point about if people haven't experienced it, like in business. Just think, and I heard this recently, and I know you probably appreciate it. Let's say somebody started business in the last 2 years and things have been going well. Well, they didn't face 2008. So this is probably, there's things going on right now that some adversity that they've got to work through. And so you've given, a lot of good advice in this that I think people can look to the future, no matter what their circumstances are, because I heard you say something else about complacency, and you're exactly right. I will admit, as a small business owner, when things are going well, I have a tendency not to do things that I should probably still be doing, although I'm busy, because I get complacent and I get so tied up in being busy that I'm not doing some of those things. So let's talk about some actionable steps, some things that you give people in their personal life and their business life. Here's some things that you can do and take action on to change your business or change your life.
Sounds great. And one of the things I want to mention is, while you were talking, is there are two different questions to me, what a winner and someone who's not going to succeed ask. And the person who doesn't succeed asks the question, am I going to make it? And the person that succeed asks, what does it take to make it? And then they may choose to stop at some point, but they're staying in that question. So in coaching people, the interesting thing to me over the years of doing it is how many times the main stopping of their success is within their reach and within themselves, that their biggest obstacle of getting successful. So what I would say is the first step is start challenging your beliefs that you can't do things. Now, if you if you think you can jump off a mountain without a parachute, we need to pay attention to the laws of physics. Or you want to leave your job on faith, but you have a special needs child that needs the insurance you get from the job. This still has to have a grounded in reality component. But the biggest thing is, start asking, what would you love to do? What would you really like to do? And then start testing out, what would it take to get there? What will often happen is it may morph into something else, or it may morph into a hobby on the side that's fulfillment, but it may not be the primary job. And so starting that process of learning to stand in what's possible while keeping your feet on the ground is a very important discipline to create. And so you begin working on it step by step. An example of this was when I was back in IBM, I was getting the co-op students and taking them under my wing to help them out, because no one really wanted the new guys from school to work with. So I was practicing coaching with them. Excuse me. I was practicing coaching with them, and one of them said, do all the co-op students have to do all this life planning and coaching and stuff along with the job? And I said, well, I don't know, but this is how I do it. And one of them was Sanford Talley, and he wanted to have his own radio station. Well, we kind of lost track for a while, and I checked back in with him, and years later I said, Sanford, it looks like you didn't get the station you want. We did a lot of planning on it. It didn't happen. And he said, no, actually what happened is, from our coaching, I realized I really wanted to have my own business, and a more fun and accessible business was security support in computers. And he had built a whole business, but if he hadn't gone for the other, he hadn't seen that one. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
I'd like to share one more story on this. Was a gentleman named Tyler, and I worked with him. Wonderful guy, and I loved him because he played guitar, and I felt like I didn't know anything about music at the time. I wasn't challenging everything, like we said. And Tyler, I said, Tyler, would you work with me on building my coaching skills? So on a whiteboard, we massively mapped out his whole dream of having a studio where small bands could come and they could perform and rent. And it was designed like mini studios, better than like a rental garage. You know what I mean? With the,
Yeah.
So they could practice. Anyway, sadly, Tyler died of a motorcycle accident. And I was at his funeral, sitting in the pews, and they were describing his accomplishments, and what I saw is what we mapped onto that board that day. He had actually accomplished all those things. Now, I don't think there's no connection to that and then you're done. That was a tragedy that took a young man's life. But the thing is I just started getting choked up. If he hadn't done that, maybe it wouldn't have occurred, because he said, well, I haven't really thought about it, but let's go for it. What do you really want? And we built it all out and mapped it out. And then when his life was cut short, I heard he actually got to do that main thing in his life. So most of us, I think, are our biggest thing in holding us back. And then excuses, I'm not this because of that. This is what you got. The gold is, are you going to transform it or be enslaved by it? Anyway, that's a long answer. Hopefully that was at least along the lines you asked.
No, that's a good answer. So, I'm going to bring us home and wrapping it up here. You've given a lot of great stuff, and sharing the stories, I think, was very helpful. I mean, again, visualizing, you said the roller coaster early on. Well, when you said that young man and how it was mapped out all on the board, you just think about like writing things down and going for it, trying to accomplish it. And what's interesting, and I've had my fair share of ups and downs as a small business owner, and obviously you may go one direction and find that it leads you to another one, and the path that it leads you down is better than the one you were going down before. And I know that you know that. So what I want to do as as we close out, like I've been trying to do some of these other interviews, is any final thoughts that come to mind for you to close us out? And then I'm giving you permission to do a little sales pitch, there at the end. So bring us home with some final thoughts that may come to mind, and then go into, Martin Brossman, here's how you find me. Here's what I do. I know a lot about what you've got going on, but share something, some of the stuff that you've got going on in the local communities and about some of the programs and certifications. So bring us home with final thoughts, and then tell us really the depth of Martin Brossman and how people can find you.
Well, final thoughts are, you'll never go wrong by starting with being grateful for what you already have. No matter how little it looks, start with that. That's a great place to start. If you feel like you have nothing, there's always something. You might have a friend. Now, this is to me a starting place. And then reaching me, my main focus is the success coaching, and it infuses all aspects of my speaking, my training, my social media management certificate program. All of those really come from the pact of, how do I help people have such meaningful lives that on their own deathbed, they'll be moved to tears by the life they lived. And that's core to my mission. And if you look, it infuses everything I do. It's just, it may manifest itself as a social media management certificate program, as sales success coaching, as helping a doctor be able to be more likable in his practice so his ratings go up, 101, or a sales coach exceeding quota so he can do more with his family. All of that's it. How do you learn more about me? I would say, first, Google my name. Second, you can go to Martin Brossman Associates. It links to all my other sites, and I'll give you that as a link. It's like a hub that goes to all others. And I work primarily on referrals. So with my coaching practice, I take very limited number of clients together. The other ways of accessing my data is I just create a lot of data publicly that's free. So you can just, like I said, Google my name and see it. And I appreciate what you're doing, David, because this is really a focus on inspiring information that's useful for people today. And thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you complimenting me. I had a interview that I did this morning where the guy also complimented me. And obviously I'm trying to give back to the community and find ways to do some things differently. And so I've really enjoyed starting this interview process, and have some that I'll be doing next week as well, and hope to continue it for a while. And I appreciate you joining me today and sharing that information. And one of the things that you said, obviously, if you Google David Williams, you're not going to find this David Williams and even if you put David Williams photographer, there are other David Williams that are photographers.
Oh, so, gosh, that's right.
So
that's
you
right.
may or may not find me there. So but in your case, Martin, obviously Martin's kind of a general name, but Brossman, Brossman, right? That's how it's. So if they search Martin Brossman, it's probably going to be the one and only.
That's it.
And so I thank you for joining me. You've shared a lot of great information. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, and take care, man. Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. Small business, I know, is your passion, and just keep at it. Ever since I've known you, you've been passionate about what you do. And I appreciate you joining me today. Take care.
Thanks.